All I am to you is an ex, Mike said in a voice that was laden with incredulousness. The flames licking out from behind her Ray-Bans briefly grew in intensity. Mention her apparent annoyed disposition. The temperature in the room cranked up a couple degrees in tune with her ocular light show. I idly wondered if I could get her angry enough to melt the black frame sunglasses. Well, yeah, I said, not quite sure how to answer that. What else would you be, Amina? We've been over this. We are D-U-N done.
I thought that we shared something,
she said, trailing off.
We were close.
Yeah, I said, getting slightly heated. I did my best to keep my emotion out of my voice, but hey, nobody can get under your skin like an ex. We did share something. Now? No, we do not. That's why I blocked you on Facebook. Amina stared at me for a moment, her mouth scrunching up slightly, like my words were a punch in the gut. But the Facebook comment was stupid, so I might have just thrown her for a spin. And to be honest, I understood. It sounded better in my head. I can't control the dumb shit that falls out of my mouth sometimes. Amina's head tilted to the side. She automatically slid into doing her thing and defaulted to manipulation. She projected an air of hurt sadness. The fact she managed to do it with the barest of effort annoyed me. If I could see her eyes behind the black shades in the fire, of course, I knew they would be on the verge of tears, or at least doing their best to look like they were.
I don't even have Facebook Calm. You know that.
Her voice was a quivering faux pain squeak. Amina was a veteran manipulator with many hundreds of years' worth of experience under her belt. Give her any sort of avenue to get into your head, she would drive a bus down it. I wasn't in the mood to fall for her bullshit and pretend she was here beyond some morbid curiosity for my sake. She wanted to know what was going on, and had made a profession of knowing things after all. So I just stared at her. She watched me for a moment. I think she was looking for something she could pounce on. Some thread she could yank until the desired result would fall into her lap. I ignored it as I tried to sit up, letting an old man grunt go as I did. My everything was sore, which is actually a good sign. And I still had my everything. I'm not sure if I had modern medical science, magic, or the abilities of whatever manner of healer was on duty when they rolled me into the ER. I hedged my bets and thanked all three. There are all kinds of wires and patches and shit affixed to my body. In the movies, the gruff protagonist just rips all of that shit out and gets out of bed, instantly ready to kick the shit out of the communists or terrorists or whoever the government was currently angry at. In reality, accidentally ripping out a catheter hurts like all manner of damnation. So I didn't touch nothing. Puking from dick pain in front of my damaged ex, no less, would have been downright embarrassing. Especially since, truth be told, somewhere in the depths of my soul, I may or may not be completely over her. But we'll keep that can of worms between us for now. Amina got up from her chair. She picked up the metal pitcher sitting on one of those hospital roll table stand things. She poured a glass of water, walked it over to me. She held the cup out to me in a wordless offer, her face doing a passable impression of concern. I eyed it warily, my eyes flicking from the cup to her sunglasses and back down at the cup again. The condensation fogging up the glass let me know that it was going to be the best damn sip of water I'd ever had. But with Amina's kind, this could be a friendly gesture, or it could be a future debt looking to get fulfilled, and you never really could tell. Yeah, I'm not that fucking stupid, I said, which is a lie because as I've demonstrated before, I'm plenty fucking stupid. If I could see the orbs of fire behind those cheap sunglasses, I knew they would be free of their earlier manipulative stance and rolling their little circular hearts out. She said, a hint of annoyance in her voice. I give this you freely, with nothing attached but my desire to see your dry throat soothed. Believe it or not, Everything I do isn't about hurting you. I had the cup again. Yeah, that sounds real nice, I said before dropping something else that sounded much better in my head. But that's something you aren't. She made an annoyed noise in my direction. Fine, she said, slamming the cup down on the nightstand next to my bed. I noticed a hint of something dangerous creeping into her voice, something that spoke of old power. My mother was right about you. My mother was right about you. Oh, I made a satisfied noise at that, which was purely just to push her buttons. Me and Amina's mother hadn't gotten along too well. Me being a small-town hick sheriff's deputy, not to mention a human, and Amina being, well, Amina. I would expand on that statement, but trust me, the less about her you know, the safer it is for you. Hell, Amina isn't even her real name. I'm changing it for your safety. Now, the going popular notion is that knowledge is power, which in most respect it is. However, there is such a thing as dangerous knowledge. Sometimes if you know too much about a thing, that something might resent that and decide to do something about it. That something is usually pretty downright grisly and obscene. Me? I'm a full-blown avatar of law and fucking order. My bosses answer to the DOJ, the DOD, and the DHS. I can get away with a bit of dangerous knowledge, because if something happens to me, especially if it's due to something I picked up on the line of duty, all those three-letter organizations are going to find that ass and dig in. There won't be much in the way of lube involved either. The government don't like when you take a swing at it, even a swing from the great beyond. Not that I think Amina would come after you, dear reader. If you knew more about her, that is, but we're going to play it safe in this one. But fair warning, if you see a set of burning eyes stalking you in the dark, just, well, I would say move faster, but it would be more accurate to say nice knowing you, I guess. How's your mama anyway? I asked, my voice all country boy shit kicker innocence. Still trying her best to prove she's relevant in the age of man. I noticed that summertime just ain't as windy as it used to be. Amina's eyes would have widened in rage if they weren't eternally burning, of course. Her body language tensed up though, her arms crossed in front of her. She glared down at me from my bedside. I come here to make sure that you are still with both feet in this world, she said, lacing that last word with more than a little scorn. And you mock me? My family. I just think it's funny that... She was interrupted by the door creaking open. A nurse poked her head in. Her eyes widened with genuine joy as she saw me sitting up in bed with both eyes open.
Oh, deputy,
she broached scottishly at me.
You're awake. And here I was just coming to check on you.
All of a sudden, she stiffened as she caught a whiff of fresh dog shit. She shoved the door the rest of the way open and barged into the room like she owned the place. Which, her being a nurse and this being her floor, she indeed did own the place. She fixed Amina with an angry glare just before her third eye ripped open wide. Pure white light blazed out of it, lighting up the room like she just shot off a flare gun. Her left eye went dark red and her right eye went emerald green. Not really sure what her metaphysical deal was, but goddamn if it wasn't one hell of a threat display. The stocky nurse placed herself between my bed and Amina. She was within striking distance of the woman with eyes of fire, and the white light blazing out of her forehead seemed to cause Amina to shrink back away from her. The fire coming out from behind their cheap sunglasses seemed to wilt a little. I noticed that the temp in the room seemed to drop a couple of degrees. Of course, if you've ever seen a nurse protect their patient, you know that being on the receiving end of a pissed-off ICU nurse's fury? Well, hell, that's like staring down barrels of a firing squad. So it was a pretty fucking rational response on Amina's part. You're not signed in at the front desk. The nurse's voice was cold. Cold like an iron coffin buried in the Arctic. My self-appointed bodyguard spared a glance back at me. I had to squint my eyes at the glare, but it wasn't too bad. Saw the nurse give me a warm smile, and I felt safe. Not that I hadn't before she walked in the room, but it was just, well, it was nice. Felt like I was a kid again, before, everything. She turned back to Amina.
"You're not welcome here,"
is all nurse said.
Yeah, okay,"
Amina said awkwardly, all air of otherworldly royalty blown out of her voice. I'd never seen her so cowed. It was out of character for her. It was great. Loaded me with a shit ton of questions that may or may not have been polite to ask the nurse until I was better acquainted with her. In Bull's Heart, a lot of residents move here, so as to live their lives in anonymity. So questions like, so where in the great beyond does your family come from? What was the first society to worship you as God? Or what the hell are you? Are generally frowned upon, at least until you have a bit more of a bond with the individual in question. It can lead to a few surprises. There's this guy who owns the auto shop over in Perkins Street. For 6 years, I thought he was a human. Hell, I had beers with the guy on more than one occasion. But over time, I started getting little inklings that he might be something more. Mentions of an ancient family line, mentions of serving in the Legion, but not the French Foreign Legion. Stuff like that. Hey man, no sweat off my back. People got secrets and they're allowed to keep them. But one day, I had to bring my cruiser in for an oil change. He didn't realize it was there. He was under the hood of a 2009 Kia Sorento. He was so wrapped up in getting angry at Korean automotive engineers that he never even twigged my presence. Which, if you've ever owned a Korean car, you'll understand. He was heated. I mean, real heated. I heard curses and languages that probably hadn't been uttered outside of an educational setting in generations. I just sat back and watched him, wondering how angry he would get. I had to suppress a few chuckles while doing so. Funniest part was that he normally was such a calm guy. Seeing him get this pissed was hilarious. Finally, he just picked the whole damn thing up like it was made out of styrofoam and chicken feathers. He walked it out of the garage and hurled it into the sky. It landed all the way over in Harris County, far side of it. And don't worry, nobody got hurt, except for the cow it landed on. That fucked up her day pretty good. All of the airports in Houston picked up an unknown Korean aircraft in their radars. F-16s were scrambled out of the Ellington field. Somebody put pictures of the soaring Sorrento on 4chan. It was a whole big thing. DHS was pretty pissed about that one. The mechanic hurled curses in its wake, screaming and beating his chest like a furious coked-up chimpanzee. Aw, shit, Andy. I sat around the feeling of shocked befuddlement, making my presence known. He froze when he realized he had an audience. He slowly turned around and gave me a goofy, embarrassed smile from behind his beard. You know you're gonna have to pay for that, which was the only phrase that sprung to mind in the state of shock I'd been in. He turned and watched the sky in the direction he'd launched the Kia, hands on his hips.
"Oh, biscuits,"
was the only thing he said. A bizarre oath after a master class of Pronto Scythian swear words he'd just given. But like the man said, so it goes. Back to the nurse. She just glared at Amina as she scurried for the door. I noticed that Amina had an ass to die for when she did, which made me briefly wonder if I could still get in her britches, but I quickly dismissed that as a bad idea. But I mean, shit, you should have seen that ass. The kind of ass that would make you ignore a pile of red flags. My ex was half out the door when she got her courage back. She paused and leaned her head back in the door. Her Ray-Bans drilled into my eyes and her face took on a smug bant look.
"Something's coming, calm,"
she started, but was just as quickly cut off by my nurse protector.
"Out,"
was all she said. Amina moved about 2 inches further through the door without taking her flaming eyes off of me. She hazarded another few words before she was completely gone.
"Something attacked sheriff deputies out in the open, calm. You know it'll happen again."
"No!" the nurse bellowed. The voice she bellowed in sounded hard like a war horn blasting along in front of an earth-shaking heavy cavalry charge. Felt like I should have gotten tinnitus from it. "You heard the lady there, La Toxica," I said. "Get to stepping. My good health and well-being depends upon it." She shot me that bitchy look. The one women give when they're tired of your bullshit but can't really say anything at the moment. With that, Amina was gone. I doubted she would be out of my life for good. At this point, I don't think she ever truly will be. The nurse glared at the door Amina had gone through for a couple of moments after it shut. The light show coming out of the ICU nurse's face slowly powered down. She closed all three of her eyes. Her lips broke into a tight smile and she hummed a note or two of a song I'd never recognize. I got the feeling I might have been witness to a display of power way beyond my comprehension. The air in the room started to smell fresh, like what I have to assume a misty morning on a Scottish moor would smell like. Got a lung full of it and it felt amazing.
"Dearie, I'm sorry you had to see that."
"I'm not," I said. "It was pretty fucking cool." The smile she gave me in return lit up the room as the nurse came over to my bed. She leaned down, checked the machine monitoring my vitals. "How am I doing, Doc?" I asked her.
"Oh, you'll live, dearie," the nurse said. "Maybe nae for long if you keep dangling with that one."
She inclined her head towards the door where Amina had just gone through.
"But you'll be walking out of here soon at least."
"Probably not wrong there," said with a slight smile.
"I know I'm not, dearie."
Nurse had me pegged. Somehow, she knew I was a 3 a.m. what you doing text on a lonely night away from going full Ron Swanson when Tammy drops in to see him. The rest of my life's fucked up. No reason my love life should be any different. However, as cool as watching my ex being terrified for her life had been, she did have a point. 3 sheriff's deputies had been ambushed by a small army of vaguely demonic bird people, which not only sounded stupid, but any sort of attack on government officials didn't tend to be a precursor of good things to come. If somebody was willing to risk annihilation at the hands of the U.S. government, or one of its allies in the great beyond or in NATO, yeah, that stuck around after USSR collapsed for a reason. That meant they thought they had the sand to fight off every 3-letter agency who had a foot in the metaphysical realm, which meant they thought they were in possession of the horsepower to withstand the might of the American war machine, both physical and metaphysical. To rip the strength of this nation from its chest and bite into it like a still-beating heart. To unleash all manner of fiery hell and damnation on us, while herding the human race along to its brutal and eternal slaughter. Real, let chaos and darkness blot out the sun type shit. But don't you worry about that. We estimate there are only about 6,000 things out there that think they can do that sort of thing. Occasionally the government has to remind them that their shit does in fact stink. You might be an otherworldly being capable of great feats of terrifying raw power, but for every superpowered overfiend who thinks he's hot shit, there's a U.S. Air Force AC-130J that's just not impressed with his nonsense. I would say only about 20 of those 6,000 have a shot of pulling off a dub. 6 of that 20 are capable of doing it without killing themselves in the process, and of those 6 only, like 2 of them, have shown any interest in doing so. But it's not like a serious interest. More like a bored idle thought. Because at the end of the day, it's not worth the effort or energy expended to destroy people. Especially when it's the last act of those people might be Minuteman 3 or a Trident 2 dropped in your lap. And that's only 2 unlikely things you in particular have to be worried about. And this, I could tell you, was not either of them. Just some weird small town shit that Amina was dragging way out of proportion, because like all batshit exes, she was nothing if not a total fucking drama queen. Oh, and by the way, don't be worried about those 2 things either, because honestly, like most things, it's just not worth the anxiety. Now, the things that can't do the whole crushing a superpower thing and are secure in the knowledge that they can't do that sort of thing, who are comparable with their lot in life, disemboweling hikers along the Appalachian Trail, that might be more worth your worrying about. But I wouldn't worry about that either. No point. Just stay clear of abandoned churches and out of the woods at night. You'll be okay. Probably. My recovery was a relatively short affair, as these things tend to be in Bull's Heart. With all the ability and power available to the hospital staff, people tend to heal quick, which is good. I wouldn't know though. Spent most of my time doped up and unconscious, which was nice. I'm told that humans tend to recover quicker than most. One of the big reasons we are the dominant species on Earth instead of, say, centaurs or vampires or somebody else. Somebody learned something? It helps that we can survive longer and heal up enough to spread that something we learned. The great beyond, as I understand it, is a sort of if you're wounded, you're dead kind of place. Makes spreading information a real sumbitch. I am given to understand that some parts of the beyond the veil, and I'm talking way the fuck out there are entire empires that have been stuck in a Bronze Age for eons. Interesting thing is that out there, lifetimes away into the dark, they are considered technological hot shit. But they are very difficult places in regards to staying alive. Self-aid is about your only option, with buddy aid is a thoroughly unexplored option. That's all we know about those places though. There are rumors that NASA launched Voyager 3 and 4 out there to try and see some of the veil. Side note, there are also rumors that the department of NASA, which controls the probes, has the highest rate of suicide of any research department on Earth. You stare into raw chaos long enough, it'll wriggle into your brain and just make life not worth living anymore. It may take a lot to injure the denizens of the spooky side of the veil, but they stay injured when you do. Which is one of the reasons a lot of them come here. For the health care. Seemed like as soon as it was deemed hale and hearty enough to receive visitors, the door swung open and there Mama Gruck loomed. "Oh, calm," she said, tears hovering around the edges of her voice, moisture making her big orc papers look glassy. Which may surprise you. Her being an orc and all, but you might be interested to know that orcs are some of the most emotionally vulnerable creatures on the face of the planet. Sure, they're capable of extreme violence and such, but also capable of great and powerful love. If an orc likes you in a familial way, they'll drop everything to help you. It was a stark contrast to when I had seen her last, roughly 2 or 3 weeks prior from what I was told later. She had been a war engine, smashing skulls and tearing shitbirds limb from literal limb. Now, she looked vulnerable, shaken. It looked like she was mostly healed from her tussle, as not only was she an orc, but a vampire as well. So crippling wounds and being maimed for life weren't really her thing. Give her enough blood and she'd bounce back from a chainsaw lobotomy. I could tell she was pretty distraught over the state I was in, though. She'd seen more than a few deputies get torn apart over the years. I could tell she might have been afraid that I might have joined that list. Knowing Senior Deputy Lavonda Grook like I do, I knew she probably blamed herself to some extent for the state I was in. And she would with any deputy under her charge wounded in the line of duty. Her body may have healed quickly, but I could tell her soul wasn't quite there yet. I decided to fuck with her, because I'm a terrible friend. "Lavonda," I said in a harsh whisper, "is that you? I can't see very well anymore." The strangled grunt and sob that came out of her was heartbreaking. I held up my hand, motioning for her to come closer, which she did. She took my hand in her massive mitts as gently as she could. She leaned over me and took my battered and beaten visage in. I could honestly say that I looked a hell of a lot worse than I felt, but she didn't know that. I noticed her wife, Maddie, had come into the room behind her. She was tall and looked vaguely like an Italian Helena Bonham Carter, which made sense since the actress was one of her descendants. I could tell that she immediately smelled bullshit in the air, because she gave me a look that was made of ice. Suspicious ice. She crossed her arms and quirked up her lips as she glared at me. I made eye contact with her and her eyes narrowed. I like Maddie, I do. But sometimes she is just no damn fun. Her day job? Night job. Whatever. Was accountant, and she sure had a sense of humor for it.
I'm here, Calm,
Grook said to me, rubbing the back of my hand.
Do you need anything?
I let out a groan of pain as I pulled myself up in the hospital bed.
I need more,
I said, letting the words trail off into the void.
More what, Calm?
She asked, leaning closer, concerned pain across her face. I said, feigning a bit of a struggle.
Daka. More Daka?
She asked, perplexed. She looked over her shoulder at Maddie, who didn't seem to get the reference, illustrating this with a confused shrug of the shoulders. Grook looked back down at me.
Calm, what's Daka?
Her brow furrowed in confusion. Right before her eyes almost rolled out of their skull as a realization hit her.
Calm, you fricker.
Language, I said with a laugh. She laughed with me, a bit of relief in her voice. It seemed like she had been holding that in for a while, like she needed a laugh. She leaned in and scooped me up in a tight bear hug, which damn near finished what the shitbirds had started. You're hurting me, Lavonda, I managed to rasp out.
Oh,
she said in a tone of voice that held all the love in the world.
I know.